Tonight we will begin by casting down a great idol, the idol of fact. You have been taught from the time you were a child that facts are final, that matter is the substance, that the world you see is fixed and immovable. But I tell you, facts are shadows. The world is not final, the world is imagination pushed out. Now listen carefully, for this is not speculation, it is not poetry, it is law. For years I have said your imagination creates your reality. I have told you that you are the operant power, that nothing comes into your life but what first arose in you as a state of consciousness. And now even the scientists, in their own way, begin to stumble upon the same truth. They whisper it in their laboratories. They perform their experiments with particles of light, and they discover the observer changes the observed. The act of looking collapses the possibilities into one outcome. Do you not see the unity? The mystic and the physicist speak the same language, though one uses scripture and the other uses numbers. Quantum psychology says, consciousness selects. I say, assumption hardens into fact. It is the same truth revealed in two tongues. Scripture declares, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That word is not mere sound. It is not letters on a page. That word is imagination. The word is the assumption, the inner speech, the state of being that you occupy. When you say within yourself, I am, and clothe that I am with feeling, you have spoken the creative word. The scientist will say, the observer collapses the wave. I say, your assumption creates reality. Different phrases, same eternal law. So tonight you must stop seeing yourself as a victim of facts. You must cease blaming the outer world. For the world is only yourself pushed out. Let me give you a story. A man once longed for a home of his own. He had no money, no savings, no credit. Every fact of the world told him it was impossible. But he remembered my teaching. Night after night he lay down and imagined himself walking through the halls of his home. He touched the walls with his hands. He felt the floor beneath his feet. He looked out of the windows upon a garden that was his. He persisted in that state until it took on the tones of reality. Within 6 months, the most impossible chain of events unfolded. A friend he had not seen in years reappeared with an offer. A bank extended credit he had never asked for. And the exact house he had seen in imagination became his dwelling place. Why? Because he lived in the end. He occupied the state of the wish fulfilled. The scientist would say, he selected by his consciousness one possibility among the infinite. I say, he imagined, and imagination created the fact. It is the same thing. You see, reality is not solid. It is fluid. It is plastic to your consciousness. The so-called outer world is but frozen imagination. Your past states pushed out and clothed as facts. What you imagine and feel is true today will harden into your world tomorrow. So do not bow before facts. Do not worship the idol of circumstance. Facts are shadows. They cannot endure when the state that produced them is left behind. I recall another story. A boy once desired a pair of shoes. His family was poor and every fact shouted against it. But he lay down one night and imagined those shoes upon his feet. He imagined walking to school with the joy of wearing them. Within a week, a relative he had never thought of sent a parcel from abroad. And in that parcel were shoes that fit him perfectly. Did the shoes come because he begged? Number. Did they come because he complained about poverty? Number. They came because he assumed the state of having them, and the world mirrored that state. So tonight we stand at the meeting place of two worlds. On one side stands the mystic declaring, imagination creates reality. On the other side stands the scientist declaring, Consciousness collapses the wave. And in the middle you stand, wondering if this can truly be so. I tell you, it is not a theory. It is not a philosophy to debate. It is a law to be tested. Take it into the silence. Assume the state of your desire fulfilled. Live in the end, and the world will prove it to you. Let me repeat it, for repetition is the mother of learning. The world is imagination pushed out. Your assumption creates your reality. Persist in the state, and it must harden into fact. Say it with me in your heart. The world is imagination pushed out. My assumption creates my reality. What I dare to occupy inwardly must appear outwardly. So we begin our journey here with the breaking of the myth of fact. Facts are shadows. States are causes. The world is yourself pushed out. This is the meeting of Neville Goddard and quantum psychology. This is the union of scripture and science. This is the threshold of transformation. Now let us move into the collision of these truths with your daily life. Now let us be honest. Many of you here tonight have heard these words before. You have read the books. You have whispered the affirmations. You have closed your eyes and tried to imagine. And yet you say, I did these things and still nothing changed. I tried, and the world resisted me. I imagined, and still the facts remained. Why? Because consciousness cannot be deceived. It is not the words you speak, but the feeling you carry. It is not the mask you wear in the daylight, but the state you inhabit when the lights are out and you are alone with yourself. Quantum psychology would tell you there are hidden identifications, unconscious beliefs, buried traumas shaping your choices. Jung called it the shadow, the part of you you refuse to see. And I tell you the same in my own language. You are always creating from the state you occupy, whether you acknowledge it or not. If beneath your affirmations of wealth you carry the feeling of lack, lack will appear. If beneath your prayers for health you still feel sick and fragile, sickness will persist. If beneath your words of love you still fall asleep in loneliness, loneliness will harden into fact. For the law is not fooled. It is the feeling that is the secret. A woman once came to me, desperate to marry a certain man. She prayed, she begged, she affirmed. She said all the right words. And still, nothing. Why? Because every night she lay down in her bed and felt the emptiness beside her. She carried the state of not being chosen into sleep. And the world simply reflected that state. The moment she changed, the moment she assumed the end, the moment she slept in the feeling of being married, of already belonging to that man, the picture changed. Within weeks, he proposed. Do you see? It is not effort. It is not repetition of phrases. It is assumption. Science would call it collapsing the wave into one outcome. I call it living in the end. This is the stumbling block for most. You cannot bring the new while clinging to the old. You cannot walk into wealth while wearing the garment of poverty. You cannot receive love while you insist on feeling unlovable. The old man must die before the new can live. Scripture calls it putting off the old self and putting on the new. Quantum psychology calls it dissolving the old identifications. But I tell you, it is simply assuming a new state of consciousness and persisting until the old state withers away. Let me give you my own testimony. During the war, I was drafted. They told me I must serve my time, that it was impossible to leave early. The facts shouted against me, but I did not accept their facts. I accepted only my imagination. Night after night, I left the barracks in imagination. I climbed the stairs to my New York apartment. I felt the brass knob cold in my hand. I opened the door and saw my wife and little girl. I entered that scene so fully that it took on reality. And within weeks, Against every rule, against every regulation, I was honorably discharged and sent home. Why? Because I persisted in the end. I lived in the state of freedom, and freedom became fact. But do not think it is easy. The shadow will resist, the old state will cling. You will hear a voice within say, "It is foolish. It will not work. You are lying to yourself. Look at the facts." That voice is the shadow, the residue of old states. It has no power unless you give it power. Do not fight it. Simply ignore it. Clothe yourself again and again in the new state until it feels natural. Persist and the shadow dies of starvation. A man once longed for a promotion at his job. He imagined it once or twice, but then gave up, saying, "It is hopeless. Others are more qualified. The manager dislikes me," but when he truly applied the law, everything shifted. Each night he imagined shaking hands with his new employer, hearing the words, "Congratulations." He felt the joy of success until it was real, and within months the very man who once disliked him called him in, shook his hand and said, "Congratulations, you've been promoted." Was it chance? Number. Was it luck? Number. It was law. Hear me well, this is not struggle. You are not to strain, to force, to make something happen. Imagination is effortless. You need only assume, and assume with feeling. If tonight you desire health, then imagine the vitality of a healthy body. Do not watch the symptoms. Do not analyze the doctor's report. Assume the end. Live there. If tonight you desire wealth, then feel the security of already having it. Walk in the joy of abundance. Do not look to the bank account. Do not calculate. Assume the end. If tonight you desire love, then sleep in the feeling of being loved. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, for assumption persisted in will harden into fact. Let me say it again. The outer world is yourself pushed out. Your assumption creates your reality. Persist, and the unseen must be seen. Say it within yourself now. My outer world is myself pushed out. My assumption creates my reality. Persist, and the unseen must be seen. So you see, there is no conflict between mysticism and science. Neville says imagination creates reality. Quantum psychology says the observer collapses the wave. Jung says the shadow shapes the world unless it is faced. They are one truth. The only collision is within you, between the state you desire and the state you refuse to release. But once you die to the old and live in the new, the collision ceases. The world rearranges itself to mirror your assumption. So tonight I ask you, what shadow are you still feeding? What state are you still clinging to? Dare to let it go. Dare to put off the old man. Dare to live in the end. For the law is eternal. Imagination creates reality. Persist in the state, and it must harden into fact. Now we come to the union of voices. The mystic, the scientist, the psychologist. Three streams flowing into one river. Neville says, your imagination creates your reality. Quantum psychology says, the observer collapses the wave. Jung says, the unconscious shadow governs until it is made conscious. And I tell you tonight, they are not separate truths. They are one truth, one law, one eternal reality. The outer world is yourself pushed out. Your assumption creates your world. Persist in the state, and the unseen will become seen. This is the law, whether you speak of scripture or physics or psychology. It is the one law of being. A man once wrote me of a lottery. He did not merely wish to win, he did not spend his days waiting anxiously for the draw. Number. He lived in the feeling of having already won. He walked the streets as though fortune had smiled upon him. He felt the thrill of sharing the news with friends. He carried that state so naturally that he no longer wondered about the outcome. And when the numbers were read, he had won exactly what he had imagined. chance, number, luck, number, law. What you dare to assume with feeling and persist in must come to pass. Think of the universe as an infinite ocean of waves. Every possibility already exists. Every outcome is present. The scientist says, the wave collapses when observed. I say, in the state you occupy is the observation. When you clothe yourself in a state, you select from the infinite ocean one outcome. Your consciousness is the chooser. Your assumption is the act of creation. So never again say, this happened to me. Say instead, this is myself pushed out. Let me give you another of my own testimonies. Years ago, I longed to visit my family in Barbados, but I had no money. My brother Victor said to me, "You want to go home, don't you? I will give you the passage." That very night, before anything was arranged, I assumed the state of already being in Barbados. I slept in my imagination on the deck of a great liner, feeling the sea wind against my face. And within days, the passage was given to me, exactly as I had assumed. It was not money that carried me there. It was not chance. It was imagination. Imagination creates reality. Let me repeat it once more, for repetition engraves the truth upon the heart. The world is imagination pushed out. Your assumption creates your reality. Persist, and the unseen must be seen. Say it again within yourself. The world is imagination pushed out. My assumption creates my reality. Persist, and the unseen must be seen. And do not fear the shadow. The shadow is not your enemy. It is simply the residue of past assumptions. Face it, acknowledge it, and then put on the new man. Jung was right. What is unconscious must be made conscious. But you need not wrestle forever with the darkness. You need only assume the new state so persistently that the old withers and dies. The shadow becomes servant when you cease to feed it. A woman once told me of her illness. Doctors had given her little hope, but she dared to apply the law. Each night she imagined herself walking freely, breathing deeply, laughing with friends. She persisted until it felt natural, and one day the doctors declared, "The illness is gone." We cannot explain it, but she could explain it. She knew imagination creates reality. The scientist would call it a spontaneous remission. I call it the law of assumption. So I ask you tonight, what do you desire? Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Do not tell me how impossible it seems. Do not rehearse the facts of failure. The facts are shadows. The facts are past states pushed out. What do you desire? Dare to assume it. Dare to live in the end. Dare to fall asleep tonight in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And persist. Persist until it takes on the tones of reality. For assumption persisted in will harden into fact. Let us make it a ritual now. Say within, I am the operant power. My imagination creates reality. The world is myself pushed out. Again, I am the operant power. My imagination creates reality. The world is myself pushed out. Carry this with you, for it is the key that unlocks every door. So go now and test it. Do not merely listen to me. Do not merely admire the words. Put it into practice. Take one desire, however impossible. Enter the silence tonight and assume it is already done. Feel it real. Fall asleep in that state, and then watch as the world, without effort, without strain, rearranges itself to mirror your inner act. For imagination is God in action, and God never fails. So remember, the world is imagination, pushed out. Your assumption hardens into fact. You are the dreamer, and imagining creates the dream in which you live. Dare to assume. Dare to live in the end. Dare to prove to yourself that imagination creates reality. For this is the law, eternal and unchanging. What you occupy inwardly, you will meet outwardly. What you dare to assume, you will experience. for imagination truly creates reality. You've been told your imagination isn't real, that it's only daydreams, that it's nice to fantasize, but at the end of the day, the world outside decides what happens to you. But what if that's the greatest lie you've ever been sold? Because the truth is stranger and far more powerful. Your imagination is not a private theater. It's not a place where you simply escape from reality. It's the lever, the hidden mechanism that shapes reality itself. And this isn't just mysticism. Modern physics, the most advanced science we have, is beginning to whisper the same thing. At the smallest level of existence, the world does not exist in a fixed, solid form. It exists as a field of possibilities. And the one thing that makes those possibilities collapse into reality is consciousness. Do you see where this leads? That means you, yes, you sitting here listening, are not just a passive observer of life. You are its shaper, you are its dreamer, you are its hidden architect. All your life you've been taught to believe that reality is hard, external, unchangeable, that your thoughts are shadows, powerless to shift the world around you. And maybe you've noticed the consequences of that belief. You imagine a better future but immediately dismiss it. You feel stuck, as though life is something that happens to you. You secretly carry dreams, but they've been buried under realism and practicality. You've been trained to believe that imagination is childish, a luxury, a distraction. But what if the opposite is true? What if imagination is the most serious, most practical, most powerful thing you own? This is where Neville Goddard comes in, not as a saint to be worshipped, but as a messenger pointing to a secret you've always carried within yourself. Neville taught one radical truth: imagination creates reality. He meant it literally, not as a metaphor, not as encouragement, but as a law of existence. According to him, whatever you assume to be true inwardly, and whatever you feel with full conviction, begins to organize your outer world. It's as though life itself bends to the pictures you hold in your mind, the emotions you live in, the stories you silently tell yourself. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. Think about the stories you carry, the images you replay before bed, the assumptions you've quietly accepted about who you are and what you deserve. What if they aren't just thoughts? What if they're blueprints? What if they are seeds waiting to crystallize into actual events? Here's where things get even stranger. Because while Neville was speaking these words in crowded New York lecture halls, physicists were in their labs making discoveries that turned reality upside down. They found that particles, the very building blocks of matter, don't exist in fixed places until they're observed. Instead, they hover in a cloud of probabilities like endless possible versions of reality. And the moment they're measured, the possibilities collapse into a single outcome. It's called the observer effect. And it's telling us something profound. Observation, awareness, doesn't just record reality. It helps shape it. Do you feel the parallel? Neville was saying the same thing. When you imagine with feeling, you are observing a reality inwardly and life responds. This isn't wishful thinking. This is alignment with how reality itself operates. You're not bending some rigid universe with fantasy. You're participating in the quantum dance that has always been there. Let's make this personal. Imagine you desperately want something. Maybe it's freedom from financial stress, maybe it's love, maybe it's health, maybe it's just peace. Right now, it feels far away, maybe even impossible. What do? Normally you'd say, be realistic, don't get your hopes up, but Neville would tell you something different. He'd tell you, tonight before you sleep, step into the feeling that it's already done. Imagine yourself there. Hear the words you'd hear. Feel the relief, the joy, the security of it. Dwell in that state not as a game but as reality. He called this living in the end. And again, people who tried it discovered their outer world shifting, doors opened, circumstances aligned. The improbable became inevitable. Now think about this. When you do this, you're doing what the quantum field does at every moment. You are collapsing possibilities into actuality. You are choosing a timeline not passively but consciously. You see, this isn't about Neville's life story. It's about yours. It's about that quiet suspicion you've always had. That there's more to your inner world than anyone admits. That the images and dreams that haunt you at night might not be fantasies, but messages, signals, even instructions. It's about the fact that you are not powerless. That you are not just a cog in someone else's machine. That the same consciousness that collapses the quantum field is alive in you right now, waiting to be claimed. Neville gave us language for it. Quantum science gives us the mechanics, but the one who must use it is you. Here's the bridge we're about to walk together. On one side, you have Neville's bold claim. Imagining creates reality. On the other side, you have the baffling discoveries of quantum physics, that reality exists as probability until shaped by awareness. And right here in the middle, you have your own life, your choices, your imagination. That's what Act 2 is about, not theory, not history, but the exact mechanics of how this works and how you can step into it consciously. So the question for you is this. Will you keep seeing your imagination as a toy? Or will you dare to see it as the instrument of creation it truly is? Because if Neville was right, and if physics is hinting at the same truth, then the greatest secret of all time is sitting in your hands. And what you do with it is about to change everything. Now that the door has been cracked open, let's walk through it together. You've just heard the claim. Imagination creates reality. Maybe part of you believes it. Maybe part of you doubts. That's natural. We've all been conditioned to think imagination is nothing more than fantasy. But let's set the skepticism aside for a moment. Let's look closely, carefully at what Neville actually taught, and how it mirrors what science has uncovered about the very fabric of existence. Neville's core method rests on one word: assumption. He said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not wish for it, not work toward it, not even pray for it. Assume it. Live inside it. Let it soak into your body until it feels as real as the ground beneath your feet. Think about this. You already know what assumption feels like. When you assume something, you stop questioning it. You stop wondering if it's true. You live as if it's already settled. If I told you that gravity might stop working tomorrow, you'd laugh. You don't believe in gravity. You assume it. It's unquestionable, woven into the fabric of your daily life. Neville's point was this: treat your desired reality the same way. Move it from the fragile realm of hoping into the firm ground of assumption. Feel it as if it's already woven into your life. But Neville added another crucial ingredient: feeling. It's not enough to think about what you want, you must feel it. Why? Because feeling imprints the subconscious. It bypasses doubt. It convinces the deepest part of you that the imagined scene is real. Take a moment right now. Close your eyes and imagine something simple. Maybe holding a glass of water. Don't just picture it. Feel the coolness against your hand, the slight weight, the sound of the liquid shifting. For a second, your body responds as if it's happening. That's the principle. Neville told his students to build entire realities this way, to rehearse the end result so vividly, so emotionally that the body and mind accepted it as already true. And once the subconscious accepts, the outer world begins to rearrange itself. Here's where the science comes in. Quantum physics tells us that particles exist as probabilities. They don't have a definite position until observed. And when they're observed, the wave of possibilities collapses into a single outcome. Now pause and compare this with Neville's method. Imagination equals observation. Assumption equals collapsing possibilities. Feeling equals anchoring the outcome into experience. In other words, when you imagine with feeling and assume it's real, you are not just entertaining a fantasy. You are performing at the level of consciousness what physics describes as the collapse of the wave function. You are choosing one reality out of many possible realities. Let's revisit Neville's own story, but now with this lens. He wanted to return to Barbados but had no money. Logically, it was impossible. Yet each night he imagined lying in his family's home, smelling the sea, hearing the voices around him. He lived in that feeling until it felt like fact. Soon after events unfolded, his brother unexpectedly sent him tickets and Neville found himself exactly where he had placed himself inwardly. Now you might say, that's coincidence. But think of the quantum analogy. Out of the countless futures available, staying in New York, scraping by, never going home, Neville observed only one possibility with his imagination, being in Barbados, and reality, like a particle collapsing into one position, delivered that outcome. This isn't just Neville's story. This is about you. What have you been unconsciously assuming about your life? That money is scarce? That love never lasts? That success is for others? Whether you realize it or not, those assumptions shape the probabilities you collapse into reality. They become self-fulfilling prophecies, not because life is cruel, but because consciousness is creative. Neville's teaching is the invitation to reverse this, to stop assuming what you don't want and start assuming what you do, to treat your imagination as the laboratory of creation, not the playground of idle fantasy. Neville gave a practical doorway into this practice. He called it the state akin to sleep. This is that drowsy liminal state between waking and dreaming, when your conscious mind is relaxed and your subconscious is most receptive. He advised his students to use this state to impress their desires. Instead of drifting into sleep with random worries or leftover thoughts from the day, he told them, create a short scene that implies your wish is already fulfilled. Live in it, feel it. Repeat it night after night until it feels natural. Why? Because the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between vividly felt imagination and external reality. It takes the feeling as fact and begins to shape life to match it. Interestingly, psychology backs this up. Studies show that mental rehearsal, imagining an action in vivid detail, can produce changes in the brain similar to physically performing it. Athletes who visualize their training see real improvements. Patients who imagine healing often experience faster recovery. In other words, the body and mind respond to imagination as if it were real. Neville simply pushed this truth further, insisting that not only does the mind change, but the world itself bends to the inner picture. But here's the challenge. You may try this once or twice and see no immediate result. And then the old voice creeps back in. See? It doesn't work. Life is fixed. This is where Neville was relentless. He taught persistence. Keep assuming. Keep feeling. Don't look to the outer world for proof, because the outer world is always one step behind. It's the shadow, not the source. He said, and do not condition your assumption by the fact of the present. In other words, don't let today's circumstances dictate what you imagine. Circumstances are the fruit of yesterday's assumptions. If you want a different tomorrow, persist in a different inner state today. And isn't that exactly what quantum physics suggests? The world is not predetermined, it's probabilistic. Which outcome you inhabit depends on where you place your focus again and again. Think about the deeper symbolism here. In myth, the magician is the one who understands the hidden laws of the world. He knows that what appears solid is actually malleable. He knows how to shift energy and bring form out of the invisible. Neville's teaching is your invitation into that archetype. You are not a victim. You are not a spectator. You are the magician, the observer, the dreamer who brings form out of possibility. And doesn't part of you already know this? Haven't you noticed times when a strong belief, a vivid inner picture seemed to mysteriously line up with outer events? That's not random. That's a glimpse of the law. Neville's lectures were filled with testimonies. Ordinary people applied his methods and saw uncanny results. A woman imagined receiving a letter of reconciliation from her estranged daughter. Weeks later, the letter arrived, almost word for word as she had pictured. A man visualized himself shaking hands with a future employer. Not long after, through unexpected connections, he was offered the exact job. Another imagined stepping into a new apartment, feeling the keys in his hand. Within months, he found himself living in the very scene he had rehearsed inwardly. Skeptics will call it coincidence. But how many coincidences does it take before we see a pattern? Quantum physics suggests the world is not random but responsive. And Neville's students discovered that responsiveness firsthand. Another overlooked part of Neville's teaching is the inner conversation. He said, "Your self-talk, the silent dialogue you carry, is constantly shaping your reality. Every time you mutter inwardly, 'I'll never make it,' or 'this always happens to me,' you're planting seeds. You're assuming failure." The reverse is just as powerful. Change the conversation and you change the assumption. Neville urged his students to replace self-defeating dialogue with inner conversations that implied success, love, abundance. And once again, neuroscience now supports this. Repeated self-talk rewires neural pathways. What you repeat, you become. What you assume, you live. Maybe by now you're feeling a strange mix of excitement and doubt. Part of you is drawn to this, it resonates. Another part says, "It can't be this simple." That's exactly what Neville addressed. He said the simplicity of this law is what causes people to miss it. We expect creation to be complicated, mechanical, external. We don't expect it to be as natural as feeling, imagining, assuming. But think about breathing. Think about the beating of your heart. The most powerful forces in life are effortless, invisible, constant. Why should creation be any different? Let's circle back to science for a moment. At the quantum level, observation collapses possibilities. But what is observation, really? It's consciousness interacting with the field. Now imagine this. Every time you imagine vividly and feel it real, you are performing a kind of observation within consciousness. You are collapsing one version of reality into focus. The microscope and the laboratory describe it with equations. Neville described it with stories and methods. But both point to the same mystery. Consciousness shapes reality, and the observer, the one holding the power, is you. But here's the sobering part. If imagination creates reality, then you are responsible for what you hold inside. That can feel overwhelming. It means your complaints, your doubts, your fears are not harmless. They're creative acts. And many of us have been unconsciously creating realities we don't want, simply by assuming the worst. Neville never denied this. He said plainly, "Man is all imagination, and God is man and exists in us and we in him," which means your creative power is divine. But like any power, it can be used unconsciously or consciously. The invitation is to wake up, to stop creating by accident and start creating on purpose. So here you are, standing at the midpoint of this journey. You've heard the method: assumption, feeling, persistence, inner conversation. You've seen the parallel: quantum physics showing that reality responds to observation. You've glimpsed the archetype: you as the magician, no longer victim but creator. The question is no longer, does this work? The question is, will you practice it? Because theory alone does nothing. You must enter the experiment. You must test it in the laboratory of your own life. So tonight, before you sleep, don't let your mind drift aimlessly. Instead, take one desire, one wish of your heart, and build a short scene that implies it's already fulfilled. Step into it. Feel it. Repeat it until it feels natural. Do this not as a desperate wish, but as a calm assumption. Live in the end, and then watch. Watch how the outer world, little by little, begins to mirror the inner world you've planted. That's the secret Neville discovered. That's the principle science has begun to confirm. And that's the key waiting in your hands. But we're not done, because in Act 3 we'll tie it all together. We'll confront the greatest misunderstanding about this practice. We'll return to the core insight, that consciousness is the true quantum device, and we'll see what this means for your life, your future, and your deepest sense of identity. For now, remember this: you are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. You are the observer, the dreamer, the creator. And imagination, your imagination, is the key. So here we are, at the threshold. You've seen the myth unravel. Imagination is not a toy, not a distraction, not an escape. It is the core mechanism of creation. You've seen the bridge between Neville's teachings and quantum physics. You've glimpsed the archetype of the magician inside yourself. But now comes the real question. What will you do with it? There's a trap waiting here, and it's one Neville warned about. You might hear all this and nod your head. You might even feel inspired, but then tomorrow, when life hits you with bills, arguments, deadlines, you'll slip back into the old story, the old assumptions, the old identity. That's the danger of passive knowledge. Knowing the secret but not living it. It's like having a key to a locked door and never turning it. So the transformation lies here, in practice, in persistence, in daring to use the law consciously rather than unconsciously. And yes, it means responsibility. Because if imagination creates reality, then you can no longer blame chance, fate, or bad luck for everything. You must look inward. What assumptions am I living in? What feelings am I feeding? What inner conversations am I rehearsing? This is not about guilt. It's about power. It's about realizing that you are not a victim of the world. The world is a mirror of you. And when you shift within, the mirror has no choice but to reflect the new image. Let's anchor the message again so it sinks deep. Imagination is not fantasy. It is creation in seed form. Feeling is not decoration. It is the engine that convinces the subconscious. Assumption is not wishful thinking. It is the law by which realities take shape. And consciousness is not passive. It is the quantum device that collapses possibilities into fact. This is the quantum secret hidden in Neville's words. This is the truth science is beginning to whisper. And it's not about him. It's about you. Imagine two versions of your life unfolding. In the first, you do nothing. You hear these ideas, you find them interesting, but you keep assuming the same things you've always assumed. That money is hard. That love is distant, that health is fragile, that opportunities pass you by. You keep rehearsing the same inner conversations of worry and doubt, and so naturally life continues to mirror that. Same patterns, same struggles, same reality. But in the second version, you decide to test the law. You choose one desire, one vision, and you commit. Each night before sleep, you imagine it vividly. You feel it real. You live in the end. You catch your inner conversations and redirect them. You persist even when nothing seems to change. And slowly, sometimes subtly, sometimes shockingly, the world begins to shift. People move, circumstances align, doors open, and you realize it wasn't coincidence. It was law. Which path will you choose? Here is your invitation. Tonight before you sleep, enter the state akin to sleep. Let your body relax. Let your mind drift. Then create a short, simple scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. If it's money, imagine holding the check or hearing a friend congratulate you. If it's love, imagine the warmth of a hand in yours. If it's health, imagine running, laughing, living in full vitality. Make it short, make it vivid. And above all, make it feel real. Repeat it until you drift into sleep. That's your ritual, that's your laboratory. That's where you begin to wield the law consciously. And here's something even larger. This isn't just about you. When you shift your assumptions, you don't only change your private life, you contribute to the collective field. Every assumption you persist in ripples outward, influencing the probabilities of the whole. Neville used to say, "The world is yourself pushed out," which means your transformation is also the world's transformation. By claiming your creative power, you give others permission to do the same. By imagining a kinder, freer, more abundant life for yourself, you help tilt the field toward a kinder, freer, more abundant reality for everyone. This is not selfish, this is sacred, but let's be honest. You will doubt. You will feel silly at times. You will wonder if you're just pretending. And that's okay. Doubt is part of the process. What matters is persistence. Neville himself said, "A man is measured not by what he does in moments of comfort, but by what he does when challenged by doubt." Every time you return to the assumption, every time you choose to feel it real despite appearances, you strengthen the new reality. And eventually the outer world catches up. So here is the final key. Stop waiting for evidence. Stop demanding proof before you assume. The proof comes after. The world is the shadow. Consciousness is the cause. Once you grasp this, you stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop living in lack. You begin to live from the end, calmly, steadily, persistently. And then life has no choice but to meet you there. So I leave you with this. Tonight, enter the silence. Step into the scene of your fulfilled desire, feel it real, assume it true, and let the world rearrange itself around you, because you are not powerless. You are not a victim of chance. You are the observer, the dreamer, the creator. Imagination is not a toy. It is the quantum secret. Assumption is not hope. It is the law. And you are the one holding the key. Turn it, live it, and watch reality itself obey.